Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to the program Tawhid in the Creation, exploring the book The Essentials of Tawhid, book 3 in the series, authored by Bidasani Mani. My name is Muhammad Fasih Peterson, and joining me is Bidasani. Bidasani, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Muhammad Fasih, and our listeners out there.
Now, this evening, we'll once again be continuing with the topic trials, tribulations, and tests as blessings. We continue this conversation looking at the various facets of life and how sometimes difficulties and trials and tribulations would actually be blessings in the life of a Muslim, in the life of a human being. And what we picked up on from last week was that certainly perspective needs to play into this, and a change in thinking needs to occur. So, Bilisani, continuing on with last week's discussion, and I think it's always important for us to use practical examples, because those practical examples are things that we can relate to and understand, so the concepts become easier for us to unpack. So we thought that we would perhaps then look at something that might be close to home for many people. And that, of course, is, let's say, for instance, the journey of Hajj. Now, Hajj is the fifth pillar of Islam, and it is something that every Muslim aspires to do to complete his, should I say, complete his duties in as far as the five pillars of Islam go, so that he can say, Alhamdulillah, I've completed this great amana that has been placed upon me. And many people desire to go on Hajj so that they can visit the holy places, and that they can stand in front of the Kaaba, that they can stand on Arafah, that they can visit the Qabr of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. These are goals and objectives that many people have, and sometimes leading into their old age, a desire that perhaps sometimes is never realized. So Hajj, of course, has with it those emotional pulls. It also has with it sometimes challenges placed in one's path. So I wanted to speak about that because in the scenario of someone who wants to go on Hajj and perhaps gets the opportunity to go and is in Makkah, performs Hajj, performs the Umrah, and then of course performs the Hajj, and they've stood on Arafah, they have performed all the ritualistic aspects of Hajj, and now they come home. Now, one would say, well, this person's performed a great ibadah, certainly they've been doing what is expected of them, but then you find this person being challenged. Perhaps they lose their money, perhaps they lose their documentation, perhaps the person gets to the airport on Johannesburg or in Cape Town and they realize their bags are on another plane. All the gifts that they were going to bring for their family, the Makkah Mibos and all of that is gone with the wind, basically. Perhaps they were going to bring Zamzam and they lost their Zamzam on the airport or whatever the case may be. So now many people might say, well, this person's just come from a great ibadah of Hajj, and the intention was, I want to do this for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they fulfilled it. So why would a person in the process of doing something good be tested by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this manner?
Shukran, Muhammad Fasih. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وأصحابه وبارك وسلم. Sheikh Abdul Qadir Jailani Qaddasallahu Sirrun Aziz, the Sultan of all the awliya, said to us in one of his books that when a calamity strikes, then the reason why that calamity strikes a person could be for one of three reasons. We'll first speak about that part, then we'll come to how do we normally react to these calamities and what should be the correct way. Let's first deal with the first part. Now, the Sheikh Qaddasallahu Sirrun Aziz says the first reason, people ask, before I even go there, let me just say this. Normally, when something bad happens to you, then people say you are being punished by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, one could engage in that question: is every hardship and difficulty a punishment or not? What the Sheikh says is that it could be a punishment. There are three reasons that he says why you are being put through these tests and difficulties. It could be a punishment because you have behaved in a way where it was not pleasing to Allah, or you were disobedient, or you continuously doing wrong things. You don't want to leave the wrong. And this particular punishment that you are going through is so that you can open your eyes to correct that kind of behavior. And the longer you take to recognize that you are doing something wrong which you need to correct, the longer the punishment will remain. Now, people, let's not come to the reaction, how people react to it. The second one, the Sheikh says, is that's the first reason, could be as a punishment. The second one could be that the person accepts that it's the will of Allah and he's not displeased with it. It's painful, he bears it, but he is satisfied with his lot, whatever it is, whether he's lost his bag or his money or his flight. He accepts it. He says, this is the will of Allah. I'm satisfied. I'm not going to fight this thing. Now, in a case where the person displays that type of iman towards difficulty, it's a reflection of the state of the heart of that person. That is a person that one can say has on the threshold of developing true iman. Now, the reason why Allah puts that person who's got iman, he's been on a holy journey, but still he goes through this hardship. In a case like that, it is to improve his iman and his taqwa and his belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it is to remove all that other reliance and connections that he may have with the dunya or his possessions or his money or whatever, to remove his reliance on that, and that it can move towards complete reliance on Allah. And so it's in a sense, the first one is for punishment, the second one is for purification, to remove all the type of problems that still might exist within the heart, to remove that. And then the third one is where it could be that the person has iman, he displays the right kind of response, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala raises the stature of that person. So he's elevated in levels where he is placed amongst the most beloved of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it could either be punishment for you to correct your behavior, or it could be for purification, to remove whatever residue there might still be of incorrect feelings, behavior, and attitudes. And the third one would be for elevation, Muhammad Fasih. Then, of course, one would have to come to how should one then respond to these issues.
The voice of Badisali Bani. This is the program Tawhid the Creation, exploring the book The Essentials of Tawhid. Book 3 in the series, authored by Badisali Bani. And tonight we are looking at the concept of trials and tribulations as blessings. We are going to take a break, and when we come back, inshallah, we will continue. Stay tuned. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, and welcome back to the program Tawhid the Creation, exploring the book The Essentials of Tawhid, book 3 in the series, authored by Badisali Bani. And tonight we're looking again at trials and tribulations and tests and hardships as blessings. Now, before the break, we were speaking about the scenario of someone who has been on Hajj and they're on their way home and they experience a bunch of challenges. And many people can relate to this, where they lose their bags or they have other challenges. If they lose their zamzam on the airport or whatever the case may be. And many people might raise the question, why is this person being put through difficulty when they've just completed the fifth pillar of Islam? They have indeed been doing things to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and yet why are they suffering as a result uh, of not of a result of the journey, but why are they put through difficulty? So while we were engaging in this, Study had mentioned that there are three distinct categories by which this test can fall into, either to purify the person of a sin. It could be so that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could, in actual fact, use this to elevate the person's status, and also it could be as a means of punishment for the person as well. So in looking at this, Brother Sadi, the next question is: so let's say, for instance, a person wants to mount the best response to this challenge. A person wants to mount the best kind of reaction in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How would one go about approaching this matter? What would be the best approach to this challenge?
Yeah, Muhammad Fasih, it's not an easy question to answer because it will differ from one person to the other. The level of iman of a person will determine the type of reaction. Now you get people, and I'm sure the listeners and you, Muhammad Fasih, would easily recognize an incident where this happened, where people are tested on Hajj or Umrah, and something happens to them, and they respond in a most unacceptable way. Some people even go to the point where they even swear. But you can clearly see the way they are responding is unacceptable, and would even at times utter statements to say, I've just come from Hajj, Allah's very unfair to test me like that. Now, those type of utterances and expressions of anger, dissatisfaction, gives you a clear indication of the state of the heart of that kind of person. The obvious one is one should never respond like that. And that would be the second type of response, is where people will say, yeah, I don't have money and I need my bags because this in there and that in there. What am I going to do? And they worry about it, but they're not displeased. They don't go so far as to express their anger and dissatisfaction. That category of person shows he has benefited from his ibadah. His iman is much more solid than the first person. And that person would be the one that would react and respond in a certain way. And the last one would be a person, it doesn't matter what happens, good or bad. Now, these are special types of people, a special category of person that you don't easily see. They fall in the category of the true salihin and the awliya. They are the ones, good or bad, whatever happens, whether it's good or whether it's bad, they're equally happy with the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whatever it is, in fact, when something bad happens to them, they know that it is in fact a blessing, whether they can see it or not, and they are pleased about it. I mean, can we imagine, Muhammad Fasih, you lose all your money and your bags and all of that, and you smile and you're happy? We're far from that. It just shows that there is progress that we still be needing to make in the way that we ought to respond. And maybe we can say, then what should the right response be, Muhammad Fasih?
But Sally, so let's then look at that. So the right response and the most appropriate response, because as Brisal has mentioned, there will be that one person who will look at it, who will say, "Oh no, what am I going to do?" But he's not dissatisfied with Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, and so he's not that he's necessarily failed the test, but what would be the best way? Because ultimately, what we're trying to do is we're trying to please Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, get closer to Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, and also we are trying to mount a response that will elevate our status with Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. So, what would be that most correct response that would allow us to enter that realm of achieving closeness to Allah Subhanahu wa Taala? Because as I see it, as I'm assuming, all of these tests are opportunities for us to get closer to Allah Subhanahu wa Taala and to achieve a greater level of pleasure that, uh, in the sight of Allah Subhanahu wa Taala.
Yeah, Muhammad Fasih, let's look at the first person again. Now, like a person like that, his mind is so focused on the problem that he doesn't have Allah in his sight. A person like that, if you are in contact with that person while it is happening, is to actually go to him and to remind him of the purpose why he's on that journey, and get his mind to move away from the dunya to the akhirah, and to remind him that even though it's difficult, that Allah's going to reward you for whatever inconvenience you may have suffered. Allah promises every discomfort, every trial, every difficulty, every test, Allah will compensate that for you. Allah promises that, and there's hadith that says it, and you use that kind of approach to get this person to maybe change his approach and his attitude. The second category of person, you can see you don't have to do a lot of work on the second category, because this person is not expressing unhappiness and anger. In a case like that, what you do is to praise a person like that and say, MashaAllah, we can see that you've benefited from the Hajj or the Umrah. The way you are responding is a clear sign that your du'as and your ibadah has been accepted, and you speak in that kind of tone. But you must say to him also, remind him that there's a reward in it. And then he would perhaps say to you, yeah, but I'm not doing this for the reward. I'm not unhappy. If this is Allah's will, I accept it. Now, a person like that, say if it happens to you now, how should you approach it? You don't express unhappiness. What should you do? You should also go to the drawing board yourself. There's introspection that you must do. Look into your heart and ask, Allah is putting me through this test and this difficulty because there's a blessing in it. Now, if we link it to what we said previously, it should assist with the purification of the heart. Now, how do you purify the heart? That's a long discussion. We can have many sessions on that. But the quick answer to purifying the heart is to remove the influences of the dunya, shaitan, and the nafs from having control over certain sections of the heart. Now, one should go back and say, my attachment to the dunya is that Allah is wanting me to improve on, to remove that and not be so obsessed with my material things and my money and things about the dunya. Or is it that I am allowing my nafs to run away from me? Maybe I'm not that kind of person, but maybe I like to show how good I am or how pious I am, and you want to show other people. Maybe that's the area of purification, and with each person it will be different. The third category, Muhammad Fasih, You can say nothing about. These people have arrived at the right response. That is the way, and that's where one should aim towards. Whatever happens in your life, it doesn't matter what it is, you have to say to yourself, if Allah, who is so fair, allowed this to happen to me, then it can only be good for me. Now, if you have that attitude, number one. And number two, I rely utterly and totally on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because two reasons. Allah won't test me beyond what I am capable of bearing. And secondly, Allah promises there's going to be relief. Promises after difficulty will come relief. Inna ma'al usri yusra, inna ma'al usri yusra. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promises that. So, I mean, you can find consolation in reminding yourself of those things when you are experiencing the actual difficulty at that moment. Muhammad Fasih.
The voice of Badisani Mani. This is the program Tawhid in the Creation, exploring the book The Essentials of Tawhid. And tonight we're looking at tests, trials, and tribulations as blessings. When we come back from this break, inshallah, we will wrap it up. Stay with us. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Welcome back to the program Tawhid in the Creation, exploring the book The Essentials of Tawhid. Book 3 in the series, authored by Badisani Mani. Tonight we are looking at the concept of trials and tribulations and tests as blessings. And sometimes it's not very easy for us to see the blessing in something, especially when it's something difficult that's happened, something that we are not used to experiencing, or when we can just not understand if one has gone through a trauma or difficulty. One cannot understand how it might be good for us. And Besides mentioned ultimately that all of these tests and trials are good for us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants the best for us, and also there's a form of purification in all of them. Now, but certainly the other thing that comes out of this then is, so recognizing everything as a test and a blessing is important, but can we then also say the reverse is also true? That even when things are going well and when everything is going fine, that we should also see that as a test from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because some people might say, well, I am achieving something good, or my Hajj went fantastic, I didn't have any problems, didn't have any complaints. So Allah's favor was definitely upon me, and that's definitely true in the sense. But also the fact that they weren't tested perhaps as severely as someone else, could that also in itself be a test?
Muhammad Fasih, that's a greater test. It's a much, much greater test. A person who they're doing what they need to do, but everything runs very smoothly. They tend to, we use the example of a person on Umrah or Hajj. So now after you've done your ibadah, everything is going well. You've got a discount on your accommodation or whatever, and you walk around and you now go and buy because you've got the money, and you've got nothing that's worrying you or challenging you. You've got all the money in your pocket, even more than what you thought you would have. What's the natural thing? You're going to say, okay, that thing that I thought I couldn't afford, I can now afford. The next thing you know, you get so sucked into the dunya because you've got all the money, nothing is stopping you. And all the things are being traded around you, and the people are encouraging you to buy, and your neighbor comes to you and says to you, did you see what I got here? I got it from this store and it was only so much, and all of those things, and you get involved. Do you know what a big danger that is, Muhammad Fasih? Because the time, take the person next door to that person who lost his money, what is he doing? He's sitting on his musla. He's raising his hands towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, pleading for help and assistance. He's in communication with Allah. You're in communication with the dunya. What a great, great, great distraction that can be for the person who wants to get closer to Allah. That path clearly of money and goods and enjoyment and all of that is a very, very, very grave danger for the person who wants to get to Allah. That's why wealth, let me just quickly just chuck in this little piece. A man came to one of the, he heard about this awliya, and he was the sultan, and it was clear that this was a very pious and holy man, but he lived far away. So he asked some of his people to take him there, and he went to the awliya with 2 bags of gold, big bags of gold, and he greeted the awliya, and he said he's very pleased that he's being received by him, because he wanted to come show that he respects and appreciates what he's doing. And he brought him this gift. So he took the 2 bags and he put it in front of the awliya. And he didn't say it was gold. So when he opened it up, he saw it was gold. In the other bag, also gold. So he said, gold, 2 bags of gold. And he took the 2 bags and he says, with the greatest of respect, I appreciate your gift, but this is not a gift for me. And he put it back there, and he looked at, the Sultan looked at him and asked, but why are you giving it back? He said, I am too scared to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to account for the little bit that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given me. I'm scared I won't be able to give full account for the little bit. How am I going to account for 2 full bags of gold? Now, in our case, we will ask him, as I mean, nog 2 bags. So, the danger of getting sucked into the dunya and getting the nafs and the shaitan to take over your heart is very, very real when things are going well. Whereas when you're going through difficulty, then you normally turn to Allah. You normally turn to Allah because you know there's no one else who can supply the answer. Muhammad Fasih.
Bilsani, I want to say a big shukran for joining me this evening as we wrap up the show. I think that the main lesson that comes out of this particular section is that anything can be a test and a trial from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and our response at all times needs to be tuned into what we want to achieve from the akhirah and not necessarily what we want to achieve from the dunya. And it's so easy for us to get swept up in the dunya and the what is enticing of it, what is attractive of it, that we forget the long-term goal. We get stuck in our short-term goals, subhanallah. But may Allah subhanahu wa make us steadfast, inshallah.
Yeah, Muhammad Fasih, I just want to add a little point to what you said about the akhirah, being conscious of the akhirah. A person who is so engrossed with the dunya, not only do they make little time for the akhirah, preparations for the akhirah, often they live their lives as if this is it. There's no other continuation of their life. And forgetting that this very coin that they are talking about has 2 sides. The dunya is only one side, but the akhirah. And if you don't couple the 2, the akhirah and the dunya, whatever is happening in your life, good or bad, couple the dunya, your time on the dunya, with that there is going to be an akhirah. And if you do that, you're already much, much, much further than most people. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us of those people who will always be conscious of the akhirah in whatever we do here on this dunya. Muhammad Fasih.
Jazakallah shukran so much, Brother Sani. All the best, and Allah keep the Sani and family safe. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to you, Muhammad Fasif, and to our listeners out there.
If you'd like a copy, or if you'd like to engage with the topic of Tawheed, and you have access to YouTube, you're welcome to visit Sadi Mani on the YouTube channel. Sadi has had various Zoom classes on these various aspects of Tawheed, and you can browse through the video catalog. And also, you're welcome to visit sadimani.co.za and download the book on Tawheed or any of the other books in the series, including The Big Bang, The Amazing Human Body, in PDF format. Just navigate to the books tab and download from the website. That's sadimani.co.za. From myself, Muhammad Fasih, peace until I speak to you again, inshallah. I bid you wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Have a safe evening further. Shukran kathir.
Alhamdulillah.